perched proudly atop an extinct volcanic crag in the heart of Edinburgh. Edinburgh Castle stood as a living, breathing monument to Scotland's turbulent and bloody past. Its colossal gray stone walls had silently witnessed countless sieges, betrayals, executions, and untold suffering over centuries. It felt as though every single stone had absorbed the energy and memories of the myriad souls who had drawn their last breath within its confines. As a history enthusiast and an amateur paranormal investigator, the legends and dark secrets of this iconic structure had always held a profound fascination for me. The poignant fate of Mary, Queen of Scots, the defiant spirit of Black Agnes Randolph, and the countless anonymous prisoners forgotten in its dungeons, they all formed a chilling gallery in my mind. Yet no amount of research could have prepared me for the overwhelming, oppressive atmosphere, the bone-chilling cold, and the indescribable anguish woven into the very fabric of the castle when I first stepped onto its wind-swept battlements. I was there on special permission, granted access to the less-known, publicly restricted sections of the castle, hoping to uncover a forgotten secret. It was a late October day, typically rainy and blustery for Edinburgh. The sky was the same leaden gray as the castle's stones, filling my spirit with a pervasive gloom. My only companions were my flickering flashlight, a highly sensitive voice recorder designed to capture the faintest whisper, and a peculiar sense of courage that bordered on recklessness, trying to overpower the frantic beat of my heart. As I walked along the narrow cobblestone paths, my footsteps echoed ominously through the castle, as if waking the shadows of the past. The mist, thick and spectral, clung to the castle's towers, shrouding every corner in mystery and dread. My first stop was St. Margaret's Chapel, the oldest and most sacred part of the castle, standing for over 1,000 years. This tiny chapel radiated the vibrations of countless prayers and silent pleas etched into its ancient stones. As I stood in its dim interior, a strong, sweet floral scent suddenly materialized in the air. A mix of lilac and rose, fresh and vibrant, it was utterly incongruous with the somber surroundings. The aroma slowly dissipated after a few seconds, as if carried away by an unseen breeze. At that precise moment, my voice recorder picked up a very faint, melodic female voice. It sounded like the soft humming of an old Scottish folk song. This chapel was named after Queen Margaret of Scotland, and it was believed that her benevolent spirit still watched over this hallowed ground. Perhaps what I heard was a sign of her peaceful presence. Yet an undercurrent of deep sorrow accompanied this sweet melody, as if the song carried not lost joy, but an enduring pain. Next, I descended into the castle's darkest heart, its dungeons. With each step down the stone staircase, the air grew noticeably colder, and the dampness from the walls struck my face, making me shiver. These dungeons had borne witness to some of the most brutal chapters in Scottish history. From the Scottish Wars of Independence to the English Civil War, and even more recent conflicts, countless prisoners had suffered here. Innocent people accused of witchcraft in the 16th and 17th centuries, political dissidents and common criminals had been tormented, tortured, and left to perish within these stone walls. I pushed open the heavy, rusted iron door of a cell. Inside, it was absolute darkness. Even my powerful flashlight struggled to penetrate the abyssal void. The air was thick with the scent of mold, rust, and an indefinable, disturbing odor. Perhaps the smell of decaying hope and final breaths. The floor was covered in centuries of grime and, quite possibly, darkened stains of ancient blood. As I took a few steps inside the cell, an unmistakable smell of burning flesh suddenly filled the air. My stomach clenched. In my mind's eye, I saw vivid images of people screaming in agony, consumed by flames. Historically, and there had been fires in the Edinburgh Castle dungeons, where prisoners perished horribly, most notably the Great Fire of 1692, which claimed many lives in the cells. Could this smell be a lingering memory of those tragic events, the still fresh torment of souls trapped in eternal fire? At that very moment, my voice recorder picked up a faint, pained coughing sound, as if someone was struggling to breathe, suffocating before their last gasp. An even more unsettling event occurred in the hidden passages beneath the castle. Legend had it that these tunnels were once used for secret escapes or for bringing in supplies during sieges. However, they were also the final resting place for many who ventured within and were never seen again. As I navigated a narrow, low, and profoundly dark passage, a faint, luminous blue-white orb suddenly materialized before me. It emitted a shimmering light and drifted slowly through the air, almost as if guiding me. I was paralyzed by a mix of fear and utter fascination. Was this a ghost light, a known paranormal phenomenon, or an ethereal trace left by a lost soul? After a moment, as I tried to reach out to it, the orb vanished without a trace, as if dissolving into the very air. Just then, I was startled by the sound of heavy chains dragging from behind me. I spun around but saw no one. Yet the sound slowly receded, as if a prisoner was shuffling away, the chains clinking against the cold stone floor. The dungeons were known to have housed countless shackled and forgotten inmates. There's also the legend of the Lone Piper, a piper who disappeared in the castle's secret tunnels, his last breath supposedly accompanied by the haunting sound of his pipes, or in this case, the dragging of chains. Could this be the echoing farewell of that lost piper's spirit, or perhaps an eternal lament? Another chilling experience awaited me in one of the castle's torture chambers. The walls still bore the marks of rusted instruments, grim reminders of devices like the maiden, an iron torture device, or the boot, a crushing leg vise. As I stood in the center of the room, I suddenly felt an invisible force violently push me. I stumbled, narrowly avoiding crashing into the wall. Simultaneously, a piercing, agonizing shriek echoed in my ears, as if someone was enduring unbearable pain, their very bones cracking. How many cries had resonated in this chamber, lost to the dark pages of history? Perhaps this scream was the final agony of the witches tried and tortured here in the 16th century. Were their spirits still seeking justice, trapped in an eternal torment? Reaching the deepest part of the dungeons, I entered a claustrophobic cell with a low ceiling and narrow walls. The air here was so heavy it felt suffocating, as if all the oxygen had been drawn out. On the floor, I saw dried, darkened bloodstains that had clearly been there for years. This cell was rumored to have been used for particularly rebellious or dangerous prisoners, some even left to starve to death within its confines. In one corner, a faint inscription carved into the wall caught my eye. No hope. That single phrase carried the entire weight of the despair and horror of this place. At that very moment, I felt an icy breath on the back of my neck, and a very low voice, as if whispered directly into my mind, hissed, "No salvation. Never." The voice sounded masculine, deep and guttural, resonating with centuries of accumulated agony. At this point, my fear had morphed into a raw physical ache. Every corner of the castle, every stone, seemed to resonate with a different tragedy. At one point, in another section of the dungeons, amidst the rows of stacked bones, I noticed a pair of tiny, worn shoes, clearly belonging to children, sitting innocently in the middle of an empty cell. Edinburgh Castle's history reveals that children, either offenders or those imprisoned with their parents, were also held in these dungeons. Were these shoes relics of those lost child spirits, still waiting for their freedom? When I closed my eyes, I could have sworn I saw the silhouette of a child, silently weeping, sitting beside those shoes. This was one of the most poignant, yet equally terrifying moments of my entire exploration. Later that night, as I walked along the castle ramparts, a chilling fog bell suddenly chimed, its mournful sound echoing across the grounds. Yet the sky was clear and filled with stars. There wasn't a single cloud in sight. The fog bell was historically associated with tragic events in the castle's past, particularly shipwrecks in foggy weather, or when enemy ships approached. Perhaps this phantom bell was a spectral reminder of a past disaster, or the final desperate warnings of long-dead watchmen. After all these terrifying encounters, an indescribable weight lingered on me as I left the castle. The stones of Edinburgh Castle had absorbed centuries of pain, horror, and loss, and it felt as if this dark energy still circulated within its walls, as alive as any breathing thing. The whispers I heard, the cold I felt, the odors I perceived, the fleeting visions, and the dragging chains were all seared into my mind. Edinburgh was no longer just a historical monument. It was a place where the tormented souls of the past still whispered, a place forever cursed, haunted by the terrifying echoes of those lost centuries ago. And I, through the horrifying experiences I endured in those dark corridors, had become an undeniable part of the castle's bloody legacy. I would never again dare to inquire about the secrets behind those stone walls, because the whispers of the castle had told me, "You are one of us. You have become part of this story, and you will never be forgotten." And I knew with a bone-chilling certainty that this story, like the castle's endless tragedy, would live on with me forever.